You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the line right now is an NWA wrestling superstar, and he is going to be appearing at Always Ready. He is a member of the Cardona Family, VSK. Are you with me, sir?
I'm here. What's going on?
It's a pleasure to finally have you on the show. You know, I'm going to tell you the little secret. This is our 800th episode. So you ended up being a milestone interview for us. So thanks for being the 800th guest.
Very cool. I thought you were going to say this was the 800th time you tried to reach out to me and get me on your show, which I was going to feel very bad about.
Not quite that many times, no. I might have sent you an email here or there in the past couple of years, but we pinned you down thanks to our good friend Mark Crisco, formerly of Ring of Honor and hopefully now with NWA. Yep. So, of course, we were talking a little bit about the big pay-per-view coming up here next, just about 10 days away now, less than 10 days, in fact. That's Always Ready. And, of course, the big news going into that is the world title picture being a little bit up in the air because your guy, Matt Cardona, your friend, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, by the way, is injured. So what, if anything, can you tell us about his status going into the big title match?
Well, I know for sure he's going to be there. I don't know what capacity, but I know he will be there. He's a fighting champion, but I don't know if this is something he's going to be able to physically fight through. We've talked a little bit, but we haven't talked in length about what the plan is. I think everything is still a little up in the air. I think he recently just announced on Twitter, if not yesterday, that he is going to go ahead with the surgery. So we're going to see where that leaves him next week.
That's going to be an interesting wrinkle heading into the big show. And of course, you're friends with him. You've been part of his podcast, his Major Wrestling Figures podcast, and all that kind of good stuff. How did you end up to be buddies with Matt Cardona?
Well, I'm a Long Island guy as well. So I hate to say grew up and make both of us feel old, but I grew up watching the, Z True Long Island stories on YouTube. He was someone whose career I watched very closely because he was, a bit of an inspiration for me. Like I said, being a fellow Long Island guy, to see someone who came from 10, 15 minutes away from my hometown and made it to WWE and then everything else after. And then I've always been friends with Brian Myers for the better part of the last 6 or 7 years. So, if you're going to deal with Brian, you're going to cross paths with Matt somewhere down the line. So, like you said, doing the podcast stuff, doing their FWF shows, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, Matt and I actually wrestled each other in early 2021. And after that, I think he kind of gained a new respect for me where, I think that was kind of the genesis for our friendship blooming as it has and getting me in NWA and becoming part of the Cardona family.
And that was for Create a Pro?
That was actually for the Figure Wrestling Federation, FWF, which is kind of their brainchild of what if we could have the wrestling figures that we had as kids do live-action wrestling shows.
I love it. That's awesome. That's a great idea. And speaking of great ideas, Billy Corgan is the owner of the NWA, and the NWA has been doing things a little differently than everybody else, and I kind of like it. Of course, we're around the same age. I'm a little older than you, I'll be honest, but we both grew up, with the option of turning on TBS at any time on a Saturday or Sunday and seeing wrestling that looks a little similar to what the NWA show looks like now, with the studio audience and all that kind of good stuff. What is your thoughts on the Billy Corgan's vision for the NWA and the Power program?
Well, I think going back to what you said of, looking very similar to turning on TBS 605 when we were kids, when I got to my first NWA show, I just stood at the ring and I looked around because it felt like I got in a time machine. It felt like very late 80s, early 90s, and I had to pinch myself to make sure it was not just a dream, that this was all real life. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something where, wrestling is a niche, and each company needs to find their own little niche inside the niche. And Billy Corgan and the NWA is putting out something a little different than anything else that's out there right now. And I think that's a good idea. The more that you can do to distinguish yourself and stand out from the rest of the herd is only going to help your product.
Very cool, very cool. And we've talked about Matt Cardona already. Another part of your family there is, of course, Mike Knox. He's one of your partners of the Cardona family as well. How do you get along with him, and how long have you guys been buddies?
Mike Knox and I actually just met the day that Matt won the NWA title. That was our first ever interacting. When we were brought with this idea of us coming together with Matt, it was okay, this is a cool opportunity. This is a good spot to be in. Of course, I'm going to say yes. And then once we started talking, Mike Knox and I, and kind of bouncing ideas off each other and seeing, what his vision of the team was going to be, what my vision of the team was going to be, we very quickly learned we had a lot more in common than I think we could have even hoped. And before we even had our first match, we kind of had this moment where we looked at each other and we were like, hey, this is something special. Like, this is something that we're both very excited about. So far, I think we've had 5 or 6 tag matches together, and we have been extremely, extremely happy with the team so far, with our chemistry, both in the ring and out of the ring. So I think that this team has a lot of legs, and I think it can go very far. And I don't think we have to limit it to the NWA. I wouldn't mind branching out with him and seeing where else we could start to try and take over.
You mentioned that, and that is another wrinkle in the way wrestling is right now, where I could see you multiple times a week. I could see you pop up on an Impact show. I could see you pop up on an AEW Dark. In fact, I have on both of those things. So it's very cool. Wrestling's wide open right now. For somebody who was a trainer and a wrestler going into this pandemic and when the world stopped to now basically be so in demand, how cool is it right now to be the prettiest belle at the ball?
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. I've always felt that way. It's a very cool thing. Honestly, candidly, going into 2018 and 2019 and 2020, not knowing what the year was going to bring, I had goals of getting signed to a wrestling company that, I every year kind of plan out and map out what I see my year being and, where I want to go and goals I want to achieve. And for, like I said, about 3 years, the goal was to sign somewhere. And I think right now, in a lot of ways, it's a blessing that didn't work out, that it didn't pan out the way I thought it should, because I have the opportunity, like you said, to wrestle for NWA, Impact, and AEW, like I just did in a month span this past month. I got to wrestle for AEW in my hometown building where I watch my favorite hockey team play. I got to go to Impact, which was, a couple hours from my house, and have a lot of fans happy to see me come back. I got to, do some stuff with NWA. So, like, right now, like you said, I get to be the belle of the ball where everyone kind of wants to get their hands on me, and I'm able to, oblige and get out there to all these places that want me. So me not being tied down to anything actually helps me a lot.
Very cool, very cool. And I told you off air, I watched some of your interviews leading into this just to make sure I got kind of an idea of your cadence and what you're open to talking to and all that. And one of the cool stories that I heard you say, I'll bring up a couple of them from a prior interview, was training somebody that my wife's a huge fan of, and that is Chris Statlander, having a hand in her training.
I knew you weren't going to say MJF. No one's a fan of him.
My youngest is, and he was upset all weekend. He's saying, did he quit? And I'm like, I think it's a work. Well, yeah, that's the truth. What was it like training Chris Statlander, and when did you know that she had something special?
Well, this is my favorite story to tell, and I tell it like a proud dad. My first ever day of coaching at Creative Pro, Chris, I think, was only 2 days in, maybe 3 at the most, and I was doing a drill with her where I had her do an up and over in the corner, and she didn't have the arm strength to hold herself up, and as the person was running under her, she actually came down and hit her forehead on the turnbuckle post, and Creative Pro has the ring with the squared posts instead of the round posts, and at the top, just like cut metal. So she came down, and she turned around looking at me, and she was bleeding from the forehead down her face. And I thought, okay, I'm fired, and this girl is going to quit wrestling forever. And she looked at me and said, is it okay if I go get a paper towel and try again? And I was like, of course. And from then, I was like, okay, this kid's really tough. She clearly wants to be here and has like a passion for this. And then, you know, I got to literally watch that grow week by week, month by month, and now year by year. And, you know, be very happily pleased with everything that she has done and all the ways that she has proved me and everyone else that has ever believed in her right, because she is something very, very special.
Absolutely. If you saw the match she had with Ruby Soho, I think that crowd was fit to be tied that she didn't win the match because people really seemed ready for her to get the push. So
I know. Texting her after, I was like, I hope you got a chance to hear that and soak that in.
Absolutely. And speaking of crowd reactions, we mentioned them. You mentioned them, JF. Everybody's favorite, I guess. The promo we cut last night is getting a lot of attention. Did you see it, and what do you think of that passionate promo that people are comparing to CM Punk's classic pipe bomb promo?
Well, I mean, he's another guy who, since the day that I met him, whatever it was, 6 years ago, I saw that passion. I saw that drive that he has. And, you know, by no means is this promo a surprise to me, because he is someone who thinks very highly of himself. I don't think that's a secret. But I think it's also a person who believes in himself and backs up everything that he believes, so that, you know, it's hard to argue with him saying he's the best and that he is this money-making, attention-drawing, ratings-getting superstar, because he is. So I have not spoken to Max about any of this, but I think it's about time that he gets the flowers that he deserves, and I think begrudgingly it's going to be a lot of flowers for him from a lot of people right now.
I think you're right. You're right. So the other thing you mentioned in that interview I wanted to bring up was the aspect of the wrestling action figures. It's something that, you know, my son and I now have, where I've never stopped collecting because us wrestling guys, we seem to be man children, unfortunately. But now I got a son who, you know, he goes into the stores and he's looking for the hard to find action figures and all that good stuff too. You mentioned that your first one was the Hulk Hogan rubber LJN figure. How did you get into the collecting aspect of things, and are you still into it as much as maybe you used to be?
Right now I am sitting in my basement, which is lovingly referred to as Hickens Bottom, because I have a wall of Shawn Michaels wrestling magazines that line one wall. I have two big display stands with Shawn Michaels wrestling figures from the AWA up to his unfortunate bald Saudi action figure that I had to buy. And then I'm sitting in front of my TV, which has two Hasbro rings filled with wrestling figures, and then two 6-foot cases that have 6 shelves each filled with wrestling figures. So I'm very much still in the collecting game. I actually just got a figure today in the mail from eBay of one Alondra Blaze, who is an NWA agent and coach backstage. So I just recently met her. But yeah, very much still in collecting. I appreciate very much that you did do your research and know my LJN Hogan history. So my dad was actually a big wrestling fan in the mid to late 80s. He used to go to all the shows at Nassau Coliseum here on the island. And he actually had this Hogan LJN figure for himself. That and a WrestleMania 2 program became basically my first toys. I had this Hogan that I used to just bash around as a small child, and then that program from WrestleMania 2 unfortunately became a coloring book.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But, yeah, wrestling has just always kind of been in my life. I can remember as young as, like, 2 or 3, when I don't even know how I'm forming memories, sitting up on Saturday mornings watching Superstars. I can remember my dad used to bring me home wrestling magazines monthly, when he would come home from work. So this has kind of always been a passion for me that just never went away, that I never grew out of, much to my parents' chagrin.
I've heard some huge dollar amounts thrown out about how much Matt Cardona may or may not have paid for the Hasbro not Honky Tonk Man, Greg the Hammer Valentine Man from the Rhythm and Blues. Do you have any nuggets in your collection that are like, the Holy Grail?
I think Holy Grail is hard because, everyone has a different definition and reason of why the figure is the Holy Grail. For most expensive, I got COVID early in 2020. So I got myself a I Survived COVID gift, and I bought the AWA Shawn Michaels Remco figure for about $150, which was my biggest single purchase for a figure. But then I also have a Shawn Michaels Hasbro figure mint on card that I got when I first signed up for eBay, which is probably 10, 15 years ago, that I think I paid $30 for at the time, that I clock all the time just to see where we are. And it usually goes now for mid-fives.
Oh, wow. Now, would that be the Rockers version, the white pants, or the black pants version?
So I have the Rockers mint on card, but the one that I'm referring to is the black and silver one. Yeah,
that's the rare one. That's the harder one to get, too.
Yeah.
It's weird, the stuff that I keep in my memory. But there you go.
I'm right there with you, so not weird.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Let's see here. So I mentioned the pandemic. I think we said we already came out of there. We talked about the wrestling landscape. So I guess we're going to head back towards the NWA and thoughts heading into the next couple of weeks where the NWA is taking center stage with Always Ready and beyond. And Knox Out, I believe, is the next one as well. So that's going to be another one happening right afterwards. So what's your thoughts heading into the big festivities in the next 10 days?
Well, I mean, I got to feel pretty confident when the next two big shows are named after, one, my tag team partner, and two, the leader of my little faction. So I know I'm going to be swimming pretty and feeling pretty good. Like I said, I think Mike Knox and I have a lot of legs to do a lot of big stuff. So I'm hoping that we get to show that off and maybe get some tag matches, perhaps, maybe even challenge for the tag team titles. I would love that. If Mike is going to continue his feud with Trevor Murdoch and do some single stuff right now, there's a junior heavyweight championship that I think would look great around my waist. And hell, if Matt's hurt and can't compete, hey, maybe I'll be the interim champion and have some matches for him. Like I said, I think we're in a good position, being that the next two shows are named after us. So whatever they got, I'm willing to take.
That sounds like a plan. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time and doing this, and we'll, of course, be watching and have all the links on there to Fight and all the other avenues of which people can tune in and watch the NWA. Before I let you go, do you mind if I ask for a little favor from you?
What do you need?
You probably can guess. I'm going to ask for a station ID. If you could say this is VSK, and you're listening to the interactive... I was going to say my old show name. Interactive interview. Let's go with Interactive Wrestling Radio is what I was going to say.
No problem. Oh, wait. Can I plug my social media handles at the end of that interview?
Of course. We are still recording right now, so if you want to...
Oh, okay.
Yep, and your pro wrestling tees and anything good like that. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. Well, hey, guys, if you want to support me, love me or hate me, or love us or hate us, you can find me on Pro Wrestling Tees at prowrestlingtees.com/VSK. And then you can find me also on Instagram and Twitter. Both handles are at isthatVSK.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It just occurred to me that I got your Ramco AWA figure at an antiques mall. They had a little bag of action figures, and they had like the AWA ones, and I had never seen those before. I think I paid like $6. I got like 12 of them in one like Ziploc bag that was like one of those gallon bags.
So crazy. I used to have those as a kid, but like because I didn't have any access to the AWA when I was born in '87, so it was pretty much the NWA was kind of done, or just something that you happen to see every once in a while on ESPN at that time. So I didn't know who any of these guys were. So they were like the people that would lose to my Hasbros or lose to my Bone Crunching guys. And I had no idea. I probably had the Shawn Michaels and threw it out and didn't even know who it was.
Oh man, yep, that's the way it is. All right. Hey, do you mind if I hit you up for that liner one more time? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, give it to me one more time. I'm sorry.
Sure. So I said my old show name, so I'm going to give you the new show name. It's well, not the new. It's the same site for the last 20 years, but I just use the site name now. It's Wrestling Epicenter.
Okay. This is VSK, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when the Blaze of Maniacs runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, we had a lovely conversation.
First lady, absolutely.
Oh, look at me. She's so kooky. Hi.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive
Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling.
Epicenter.
Oh my God, you win! Wow, being interactive.
Whoa! I was not shooting. Yeah, I almost missed my pants. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. I see my language. Getting over the shot. I see them now. We're into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's going to be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional wrestling.
Made in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You gotta recognize who's the best. Make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm gonna kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line. Have a nice day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.